Hey, welcome to this podcast that's going to look at assessment for Achievement Standard 91368, and that's using Microsoft Access relational database to create some digital outcomes with dynamically linked data for our BMX club. Quite simply, we have a BMX club membership database for which we're going to create some queries and use the results of those queries to create a newsletter and 2 letters. So what we're going to do over the next few minutes is really go through the assessment, hopefully draw your attention to the major points, and I'm really going to pitch what I'm going to say at excellence, because that's what we should all be aspiring to achieve. And it says this magic word here, efficiently implement. Now, efficiently implementing a solution is all about how you go about testing it, how you use your time, making sure that your database structures are efficient, so we've got no repeating fields and so on. So let's go through the main key points that I want to draw your attention to. First of which is that you must make sure that you meet the specifications. You're also going to get assessed about the manner in which you go about creating the database newsletter, and how you apply techniques, some of the more advanced techniques, and also how you test your database as well. Your independence as well as your accuracy and efficiency, so it's important to be working on your own where you can, and your ability to solve any problems that you've got. One thing to remember about efficiency is getting it right first time. If you do something, get it wrong, have to go and do it again, you're not being the most efficient. So think about how you test things really carefully. So let's look at the specifications. These are the things that you must basically do. Firstly, you're given all the assessment data to use, so you don't need to spend a disproportionate amount of time plugging in data into your database, but you must demonstrate the use of advanced database procedures, and your newsletter and letters must demonstrate the use of a selection of advanced word processing procedures, and we'll talk about what those are in a minute. Include riders and their address details included in the newsletter for mailing purposes. Include a range of suitable images, logos and/or graphics to promote club sponsors, plus recent and future events. Details such as placing, profile and class and so on for the rider of the month, so there's quite a lot of information that's going to go on there. Appropriate styles and effective design principles are applied. So think about what makes a good quality digital outcome. 3 key content features: President News, fundraising, trackside. Monthly newsletter is created for each month that you've applied custom styles. We've got the club's name, address details, contact information displayed, able to be folded to a DLE size for mailing. We've also got a monthly letter to treasurer that's created for use every month. Letters are formatted appropriately. Remember, it's going to be a formal letter, so think about what we do to format a letter. And that they demonstrate a standard theme used across the document. So this is basically your branding that you're going to use, so logos, standard typefaces and everything else. And remember to talk about all this type of stuff in your blog as well. Number of queries that are going to be required: results for the newsletter, biographies for the newsletter, the invitation letter, so that's a more complex query in terms of pulling some data there, and the fees letter as well. Create a query for all fees paid for March and April, showing the amount, date paid, the rider's name and plate number. You're going to need to decide the most efficient way to do this and the most appropriate way to display that information. Okay, so think carefully about that. And testing: you must produce a test plan using the test templates that we've got. And in terms of what you're going to hand in, you've got obviously a folder that you're going to need to create, and the folder name must be your achievement standard and your name as the title for that folder. And within that you must have your Access database. You're also going to have PDFs of the printouts of the database data that's linked to your final outcome, so that's your newsletters and your 2 letters. You also need to have printed copies of those as well. You need a printed and completed copy of the observation checklist, which I'll talk about in a moment, and your record or log of what you did and what happened at each stage, and that basically is going to be your blog. Can you make sure that you put a shortcut in your folder that actually has your blog link, so that everything in that folder contains all of your evidence or links to the assessment evidence for this particular assessment. So let's just go back then. Efficiently implement advanced procedures. Okay, so what do we actually need to do? Well, we got a suggested work plan. for you to actually be working through. I'd suggest that you make sure that you go through and you look at how you're going to allocate your assessment time proportionally across these tasks based on how long you think the tasks are actually going to take. You've also got this important checklist. You need to be writing in here your evidence. You can see quite clearly here the advanced features of the database, so linking tables, sorting on one field with a secondary sort, creating multiple queries against different fields in different tables, customizing reports and forms, setting validation rules. So you've got to do at least 3 of those things to get your achieved. Obviously, the more you do, the more skillfully you're demonstrating, and that's going to be moving you up into the achieved with merit criteria for this section. We've also then got a selection of advanced procedures for the word processed newsletter and letters. Think about custom styles. Certainly for the newsletter, think about headings, body text, subheadings. I would definitely use a table of contents with section breaks, a footnote and endnotes, multi-level bullets, numbering, page numbering tools. You can create, obviously, using templates, use a cover page. Think about the tutorials that we've worked through for that, for the newsletter, but also about how we format a formal letter. And make sure that you write in this box here exactly what you've done and where. Likewise for the design elements that you've used, explain your data integrity and testing. Good idea to put a blog post about how you've tested your solution as well. And also I would put quite a detailed blog post about the legal, ethical and moral responsibilities that you followed. For example, copyright. Where did you source your images from? You know, you maybe used a Creative Commons search to actually search for the images. Privacy. It might be that you put a password onto the database so that people cannot access it if they're not supposed to. Health and safety. Font size on screens. How easy the system is to use and navigate around. They're all things that you're going to need to actually consider. Okay, now moving ahead, when you look at obviously your merit, you need to be looking at independence. Okay, you've got to be making sure that you can go on and work with minimal advice, guidance and support from your teacher, that you can work and make decisions on your own without relying on help from fellow students, and how effective you were at planning and organising your own work. So that's the way in which you work, the independence. The accuracy, well, it's important that your products look polished and professional, both with the database and also your final digital outcomes. Have you accurately applied the design elements and procedures? Have you actually tested and checked your outcome appropriately? These are key elements that you need to demonstrate in order to get a merit. So looking at excellence then, and this is really something that, you know, all of you should be aspiring to. You're all quite capable of getting there. So how did you manage your time, not wandering around chatting to classmates? You know, if you've done a lot of that, you're not going to be getting an excellence. Quite simple. How effective at solving your own problems were you if things didn't go quite right? Did you think about how to do things before you act, and so avoid time-consuming undoing and redoing? So that's all about, you know, planning. You know, it's all in the preparation and planning to get a good quality outcome. Handing, obviously, working on time, well, that's going to be needed for achieved. Meeting all the requirements without resubmission. Did you know what to do and just get on with it? Did you use test data to guide best practice and next practice? Did you use the correct tools for the task? Did you use minimal amount of materials? Did you ensure that digital resources such as images were appropriate sizes, compressing, appropriate formats, and so on? So there's a lot there that you really need to think about. Okay, so this is all the data. I would suggest that you go through and actually put this into an Excel spreadsheet so you can import the data into your database a bit more effectively. And what we've then got is a lot of information. This is information obviously that's going onto the newsletter. Remember that the club details need to go onto the newsletter. You can see that we've got various sections in our newsletter, so we may have these perhaps as different headings. We can create different custom styles for the body font. Heading 1, maybe heading 2, for subheadings. That would be a heading 1. How might we use footnotes? How may we actually put in information, text, images, using a cover page, section headers, a contents page. Okay, all of these things might be on different pages there. Remember on the newsletter that you need to include the name and address of the rider. Form letter 1, as it says there, is a form letter, and this is inviting a specific group of members to a particular event. So you need to be working and pulling through a mail merge onto a Word document. And we've then got a letter from the treasurer, slightly different, and that could be, I guess, done as a report within Access, or again mail merged, but you need to think very carefully about how that data is going to be included. Some key definitions for you. Okay, advanced database procedures. Make sure that you include at least 3. Okay, there are obviously other things, but then we've got advanced procedures. Okay, applying custom styles. So think about your headings, think about body text, table of contents, section breaks, footnotes, endnotes, multi-level bullets. Now, multi-level bullets is where you have a hierarchy of bullets. So if I want to put one in, I can press enter and press tab, and we get a sub-bullet of the bullet that's above. Object linking and embedding. Okay, we've done that through the nature of creating our documents. Creating maybe a template to use as well. And all those procedures that are underlined are actually required. Okay, so we need to put section breaks in, so that'll be for your newsletter, and applying custom styles, object linking, obviously, because we're linking it to our database, and we want to create a template. That's not using a template, that's creating a template. So in a nutshell, that's what we've got to work through for our assessment.